right, it looks like we are live. If this is your first time checking out my Facebook Live, thank you so much for checking it out. My name is Dani LeBerry. I'm a virtual licensed psychotherapist and happiness transformation coach. So I typically work with people who are feeling unhappy, unfulfilled, overwhelmed, stressed out, anxious, maybe a little down. So tonight's Facebook Live is on National Authors Day, which I will get to into this topic in a second. Our next Facebook Live is on the International Day for Tolerance on Tuesday, November 16th, where we'll be talking about tolerance, we'll be talking about boundaries, we'll be talking about how to connect with other people when your beliefs or your opinions differ. Monday, November 22nd is National Day of Listening, where we'll be talking about reflective listening, being present, and the value of connecting with loved ones during the holidays. All right, so National Authors Day. So reading is so good for your mind, for your soul. What are your favorite books? Who are your favorite authors? I've had clients tell me before how, Dani, I just find that reading is so boring. And I ask them, well, what books are you reading? Because it really depends on books that you're reading. There's all kinds of books out there. There's so many different ones. So if you find that you're kind of picking one based on the cover, or you're just looking at it randomly and picking one, you find that it's boring or it doesn't really keep your interest, it doesn't keep you engaged, don't fault all books with the idea that every book is boring. So for tonight's Facebook Live, I wanted to share with you some of my favorite books that have impacted my life significantly, and then at the end, just talk a little bit about my book. Okay, so the first book I really want to share with you that has impacted me significantly is Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. This is her book, and then this is the workbook. She goes into, if you're familiar with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's, Alcoholics Anonymous, you have Narcotics Anonymous. So you have different forms of addictions anonymous, which are support groups. These are groups where you can attend a meeting anonymously, and it is free. You don't have to pay anything. It's not considered therapy. It's more like a support group. So part of the recovery community, there's also Codependence Anonymous. And when it comes to codependency, I highly recommend these books. Now, codependency, what had me get into these books, I'm in recovery, if you're not already aware, and I noticed that even though I had stopped using, I'm in recovery from ecstasy and cocaine. August was 6 years, and I'm also in recovery from alcohol, which would be, I would say, let me see, 17, 18, 19, 20, 3 years in coming up in November. So November 11th, actually. So I refrained from, so I abstained, right, using substances. And then when I continued to drink, and then I realized, I should probably stop consuming alcohol, because I thought alcohol was the issue. Stopped using drugs, stopped drinking. But then I noticed that these tendencies, it wasn't so much about the drug. It wasn't so much about the drink. It was more about my relationships to them. It was about my relationships to anything, to people, places, and things. So I realized I was very codependent, and that's what led me into Codependent No More, into looking at how I had these tendencies to sort of control others, how I was because you can be independent. For example, I love going to the movies by myself. I have no issues with going out by myself. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have challenges going out by yourself, then you must be codependent. It has a lot more to do with caretaking, taking care of others, almost sort of like setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm, not saying no when you mean no, and instead saying no when you mean yes, or yes when you mean no. So just kind of picking up on lack of boundaries, not really expressing how I actually felt about things, being afraid of how I felt, or being afraid of expressing that because I didn't want to let people down, people pleasing, things like that. So once I became aware of these patterns, these behaviors that I had, I went into Codependent No More, and I loved the book so much that I ended up getting her workbook, which is phenomenal. Melody B. So that has this has more to do with noticing your patterns with relationships. It doesn't just have to be intimate relationships with your family, especially with family. Work relationships. You take on too much at work. Do you notice yourself kind of trying to people please at work? Do you overcommit yourself? So just becoming more aware of our relationships, our dynamic to people, to substances, to food, to different things. The next book I want to suggest, or I should say is one that has impacted my life. So this book, I'm currently reading this book, but this author, I wanted to bring her up. Jen Sincero. She is also the author of You're a Badass at Making Money, Master the Mindset of Wealth. I love that book. That was the second book I read of hers. The first book I read of hers was You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. That was the very first book I read of hers about 3 years ago. And that impacted my life, completely shifted my mindset on so many different levels in a way of really seeing myself as an investment, looking at myself as opposed to spending my money on things, looking at spending my money on experiences and investing in myself. So that was the first book I read of hers, You're a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. I loved that book so much that I ended up getting the second one of hers, the You Are a Badass at Making Money. I love that book. And then, when was it? I can't remember if it was last year. I don't remember when it was, but my boyfriend and I were traveling, and I saw this in the airport, and he got it for me. This is her third book, and I just started reading it. I love this author. I like the way that she writes. This one is Cultivate the Awareness, Boundaries, and Daily Upgrades You Need to Make Them Stick. Badass Habits. So I love the way that she writes. She's very down to earth in how she writes her content. So Jen Sincero, she's another author that has impacted my life, and I highly recommend. Okay, when it comes to spirituality, spiritual health, improving the quality of my life, the books that have impacted me the most, Deepak Chopra's The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. I read this book for the first time about 6 years ago. Then I read it again about 3 years ago. And then my boyfriend and I did a book club together on this book. Was it this book? Oh, wait, no, I lie. It wasn't this one. It was The Fifth Agreement, which is a different one. I'm going to get to that one. I'm sorry. But we did read this one together. The seven Spiritual Laws of Success. The reason I really like this book is Deepak Chopra, he takes a lot of Eastern philosophies and he brings them over to our Western sphere here, and really talks a lot about, when you're reading this, it sounds very simple, but yet it's very powerful. So he breaks it down into 7 laws, and the law of pure potentiality, the law of giving, the law of karma or cause and effect, the law of intention and desire. So these seem very simple, but when you implement them, it really, really, I realize I'm going to end up sounding very similar with a lot of these books, because a lot of them help to shift perspective. It's like kind of like putting on a new lens or a new set of glasses to get clearer on things. It really helped keep me grounded. So The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success is another great book I would recommend, another author that has significantly impacted my life. All right, so Don Miguel Ruiz, he wrote The 4 Agreements, The Fifth Agreement. So I first read The 4 Agreements, I want to say maybe more, I don't know. Oh my. Probably 8, 9, 10 years. I can't remember how long ago I read this book. 2014. So there we go. There's the date in here. One of my best friends wrote a little note to me about the book. Not about the book, but for me. So I read this book first, The 4 Agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Do not make assumptions. Don't take things personally, and always do your best. Very simple, right? But when you implement it, it really shifts and brings a lot of peace to your life. And being able to stay grounded, being able to move through your life regardless of what happens around you, not allowing it to impact you or affect you or destroy you. So anyway, so that's the 4 agreements. Well, after he wrote this, he then came out with the 5th agreement. I mean, talk about very mind-blowing. The way he explains this and gives you, I'm just going to give you, like, this is an example. He gives an analogy of using like a movie theater. If you're walking into a movie theater, what do you see? You're seeing your movie, your life's movie. You can recognize everyone in the movie, but say you walk out of that movie theater and you go into your mom's movie theater. You may not even recognize your mom. You may not even recognize yourself because everyone in this movie is going to be in your mom's perspective. Let's say you walk out that movie theater and you go into your dad's movie theater. Same thing, siblings, friends. You may not even recognize yourself or some of these people because this is their perspective, their perception of their life. Just that analogy alone can completely turn your perspective on things upside down. For example, when you're dealing with people, when you're managing, whether you're managing people, whether you're dealing with people in your professional life, your personal life, your family, your friends, if you're ever in a conflict, imagine, I wonder what their movie theater is like. Because remember, their movie theater is going to be a completely different perspective and perception than yours. So just that philosophy alone can help you resolve things, can help you move through challenges a little bit more, I don't want to say effortlessly because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work, but you can have some insight and some tools to guide you through trying to move challenges, okay? So that's the 5th agreement. I really love this book. If you're really looking into books right now and you're not sure what to read, don't worry about getting the 4th agreement because he goes over the four agreements in the 5th agreement. This same author, Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote these 2 books, this is not a book. This is more of a daily meditation book. This is called Living a Life of Awareness. It's the same author. These have different daily meditations in them, and they are so applicable and relevant to today. I'm constantly using them for my clients. It's very, very, very brief. It'll usually have like a message, and then on the bottom, how to practice, how to actually practically break this down in your life. I love this book. So that's the same author. All right. So now I want to shift gears a little bit and go into more of a interpersonal, personal perspective. If you are a woman and you're watching this Facebook Live and you have challenges with things like either unhealthy relationships or you find yourself kind of chasing after the person or wanting the person that you're dating to be a certain way. You want them to be a certain way, or you find yourself having to try to get them to be certain ways, or any of that. If you're a woman and you're having any of those challenges like that, I highly encourage you to check this book out, Why Men Love Bitches. Now, this is not to say that I'm encouraging any woman to be that. I like the way that this author describes and writes about having some self-respect, about having standards, about redirecting that energy in going after that guy and chasing him and wanting him to be that way and be this and be that, redirecting that focus and that energy to yourself and starting to set the standard and the tone for yourself. And in doing this, you end up getting a lot more peace and self-confidence. And so every client that every heterosexual woman client that I've had that I've encouraged to read this book, they've never regretted it. So I encourage, if you're a woman and you have any challenges with those areas, to check this book out. All right, so on a somewhat still of the same genre, as far as like interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, something that, and these are all books that are relevant to the clients that I work with. So if you're finding that this is something that's not it doesn't jive with you, you're not resonating, hey, feel free to close the live and I'll catch you on another one. These are just books that are relevant and supportive to the clients that I work with. So the New Rules for Love, Sex, and Dating, this book is something that I've noticed. Now, this is more for if you are open to spiritual Christianity, if you're open to, there he uses God, he's a priest. I want to know, he's not a priest. Is he a priest or a pastor? He's a pastor. This has more to do with giving you like a sort of moral compass in love, in romantic relationships, in kind of navigating and giving you a sort of moral compass on how to, as far as like the values, the foundation. Love is patient, love is kind. What does that mean, and why has that worked for people in the past? So this is a great book for that. My last, but definitely not least, I had to introduce Stories of an Ex-Party Girl. How to Feel Happy and Good About Yourself Without Alcohol and Drugs. This is my book, Amazon bestseller. So this book is not just my stories. It also has tools on how to get women from where they are to where they like to be as it relates to alcohol and drugs, as it relates to unhealthy relationships. If you find yourself going from relationship to relationship, or if you find yourself experiencing feelings like unhappiness, feeling unfulfilled, feeling anxious, feeling sad, feeling frustrated, resentful, and filling those feelings with food, alcohol, prescription drugs, partying meaning not as in blue martini, but partying as in taking drugs, abusing prescription drugs, party drugs, designer drugs, things like that, things of that nature. So I wrote this book not just to have my stories in it, but also to be a blueprint. If someone isn't sure, or they're just now kind of delving into sober curiosity, or maybe they're starting to think, oh, I wonder if I have an issue here, or if I have challenges with this, or if I need to improve on this. This is my very own book. And as a matter of fact, every Sunday this month, except for the 28th, which is Thanksgiving weekend Sunday, the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are meeting online via Zoom. I have my a book club on my very own book. So if you're interested, just send me a message here on Facebook, or you can email me. My email is Dani, D-A-N-I, at DaniLaberry.com. So that's to check that out. If you're local to Boca Raton, by the way, on Saturday, November 13th, I am leading a guided beach meditation in person at South Beach Park in Boca Raton at 8:30 a.m. Now, my birthday is actually November 11th, 11/11. So in honor of my birthday, for this guided beach meditation, when you buy your ticket, you can bring a guest for free. So we've got a lot of events going on in November. I hope to see you at one of them. Thank you so much for checking out my Facebook Live. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Dani Laberry. I'm a virtual licensed psychotherapist and happiness transformation coach. Take care of yourself. Have a good rest of your night, and I will see you on the next Facebook Live.